All right, Shabbosai, good morning. Good morning. Let us begin by thanking all of our sponsors for this morning's share. To thank our Talmud Torah sponsors for the month of Adar Beis, the Schwartzbaum family, for dedicating all the Sherman Drashos this month in memory of Rabbi Aaron Schwartzbaum, Aaron Yosef ben Meir Zichron Livracha, Leah Sol, and the schus of her daughter Ilana Bas Esther's successful surgery and complete refuah shlema, safe return of all of our hostages, and success for all of our soldiers. Maya Hoffman in memory of her father Reuven ben Emmanuel Zichron Livracha, and in the merit of Hatzlacha, health and joy for the entire family. Yoel and Sarah Kelman, in honor of the birth of their son and in memory of Staff Sergeant David Sassoon, Hashem Yikom Damo, who was killed fighting in Gaza on March 6, 2024. We thank all of our sponsors for their generosity, all of the Neshama Shtav and Aliyah, the families in Nechama, all those who need a refuah Shtav, together with Kol Cholei Yisrael. Our hostages should Emirat Hashem come home, B'Shalom U'M'Karov, and our soldiers should be successful b'chol ma'aseh yedeihem. But so with that, let us begin. We have a ridiculous amount to do today. It's like ridiculous, but okay, we got this. Today's daf is Lamed Daled 34, but you would not know that from where we are starting. We are picking up in Meretz Hashem on Lamed Gimel Beis 33b, and we are picking up 4 lines down from the top. Okay, so literally, actually 3 lines down, last word on the line. So my drosh, Shabbos, remember again, the Gemara pointed out, it's really incredible Gemara, so much to unpack there, both historically as well as hashkafically. But the Gemara spoke about the idea that a person should always run to learn Gemara more than anything, or that Gemara is the ikar. Gemara is the ikar. So we'll say we understand that certainly from an educational perspective, because Gemara really contains everything, as we discussed yesterday. But the Gemara says, my drosh. So also we've seen this many times, that when Chazal issue a piece of advice, there's no such thing as a piece of advice that's not rooted in Torah. Anything and everything that we do stems from Torah. So even something that appears logical is not done simply because it's logical, but it's done because it has some source in the Torah Kedosha. So my drosh, what was the drasha that they made? Kididarsh Rabbi Yehuda Rabbi Eloi, my dichsev haged la'ami pisham, tell my nation their passion. I'm saying now pesha represents a rebellious sin. Tell my nation their pesha, ula beis Yaakov chatasam, and beis Yaakov tell them their chait. Chait is generally considered to be an unintentional sin. So the Gemara says, what is it referring to? Haged la'ami pisham, tell my nation their intentional sin. Elu talmidei chachamim. Wow. This refers to Torah scholars. Now, how does it refer to Torah scholars? Sheshigagos na'ases lahem kizdonos. Ultimately, because even their unintentional sins are like intentional sins. Now, what's the logic behind that? Because a Talmid Chacham has the ability to know better. He has the ability to have knowledge. He has the ability to learn. So we'll say this is an incredibly overwhelming yisod within Yiddishkeit. If you failure to know something that you could have known is not an excuse. Right? Again, the Gemara Maseches Makkah says when you kill someone unintentionally, Reuven kills someone unintentionally, I bet it was an accident. What's the Gemara's answer to it was an accident? You should have been more careful. I will say, in Yiddishkeit, there is the concept of personal responsibility. So Talmid Chacham, who has the ability to learn, I will say, who's a Talmid Chacham who has the ability to learn? All of us are Talmidei Chachamim who have the ability to learn, especially in the age in which we live, where there is unprecedented access to information. If I make a mistake in life because I didn't know something and I could have known it, that's on me. That's on me. That's why it calls the Talmidei Chachamim, it calls even their accidental averos intentional averos. I intentionally didn't have kavana, I should have learned. So the Gemara says, Beis Yaakov chatasam, Eila Amei Haaretz shedonos nasan lekishkagos. So I both say so again, but Amei Haaretz, obviously people who are just totally ignorant. So again, their averos, even their intentional averos, are like accidental ones. So I'll say, interestingly enough, that the responsibility that comes with becoming a Talmid Chacham. Rabbi Yehuda says, be careful with your learning. Sheshigagas Talmud ola zadon. Because a mistake in your learning is counted as an intentional infraction. Meaning what I will say, again, the idea over here is, if I could have known, if I could have learned, failure to amass knowledge is on me. I'll say it's one of the most incredible yisodos of Yiddishkeit, the concept of personal responsibility. If something is on me and I did not get it done, I can make up a million different excuses. But as you say many times, the buck of my life stops with me. So I do something accidentally, should have been more careful. I make a mistake because I didn't know something, or why didn't you learn? Why didn't you understand more? Incredible. So the he's quoting the pasuk from Yeshayahu. Shimu Devar Hashem Haredim El Divaro. So I will say literally again, listen, Charedim. Charedim, a Chared means someone who is scared, meaning someone who walks around with the fear of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So here the word of Hashem, the Charedim, the word of God. Elu Talmidei Chachamim. This refers to Torah scholars. Emru Acheichem, your brothers will tell you. Elu Baalei Mikra. This refers to people who are proficient in Chumash. Now, remember again, Talmidei Chachamim in this context means people who are proficient in Gemara. That's what we're referring to over here. Imru Acheichem, so who are your brothers? Elu Baalei Mikra. These refers ultimately again to people who are proficient in Tanakh. Sonachem, we'll say your enemies. Who are your enemies? Elu Baalei Mishnah. It's so interesting, I will say. Who are your enemies? Your enemies are the ones who learn Mishnah. Now I will say, why would the people who learn Mishnah be referred to as your enemies? Look at Rashi. Rashi is the first of the intermediate lines. Rashi says, Shesonin Baalei Gemara, Lefi Shabaalei Gemara Omrim Al Baalei Mishnah, Shin Mevalia Olam. So I will say, so the people who learn Mishnah hate the people who learn Gemara. Why? Because the people who learn Gemara say to the people who are learning Mishnah, you're wasting your time. Or more accurately, you're destroying the world, which is a little bit heavy, right? A little bit heavy. I'll say, but you understand, we saw this before. What's the challenge with just learning Mishnah? Learning Mishnah is beautiful. What's the challenge with just learning Mishnah? You can't learn halacha from Mishnah. You need Gemara for the analysis of Mishnah. So there's a danger in those who only learn Mishnah, in that often they will come to erroneous conclusions in their Judaic practice. So I will say, this is also just a little bit tragic, because you see that sometimes I will say, even people who are focused on spiritual pursuits, and even people who are focused on the service of God, we sometimes lose our way and begin chas v'shalom to dislike one another. It's very, 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 this is not a new dynamic. The Gemara goes weiter. The Gemara says, Minadechem, literally again, those who despise you, Elu Ame Haaretz. This refers to Ame Haaretz, to ignorant people. Rashi says over here, Shetamidi Chachamim Snuin Umitu Avilahem Kenida. Just like a woman who's a Nida is distanced from her husband, the Ame Haaretz often hate Talmidei Chachamim. They have a disdain for Torah scholarship. We'll say, we see this dynamic. Why is it that sometimes people who are ignorant have a disdain for Torah? We'll say because deep down the neshama knows what it should be doing. The neshama knows how it should be behaving. And so sometimes again, that almost inadequacy or inferiority sometimes can manifest itself in a sense of disdain. So we'll say, isn't this incredible? You see this level of discord that exists within the ranks of Klal Yisrael. Says the Gemara, Shema Tomar, Pasak Sivra Benatal Sikuyam, Tamalomar, Venira Besimchaschem. See, you might say that literally again, there's no hope, right? There's no hope. There's no future for any of these individuals. Talmud Lomar, v'nira b'simchaschem. We will see the future joy. Shema Tomar, Yisrael Yevoshu, Talmud Lomar, v'hem Yevoshu, Ovdei Kochavim Yevoshu v'Yisrael Yismechu. So we'll say this pasuk is talking about the Messianic era. And we'll say, what a way to end this parak. What's the good news? We'll say a lot of times I think Klal Yisrael there's discord. It happens. It happens, and the truth is, it has been happening. And people dislike each other for a variety of different reasons. And sometimes the most dangerous levels of discord are religious discord. Because we'll say when a person hates someone else because of religion, so suddenly again it becomes like a holy war. Suddenly again it becomes like I'm executing the will of God by having disdain for someone else who doesn't look like me, behave like me, practice like me. What's the good news? The good news is when Mashiach comes, everything is corrected. Mashiach is the ultimate course-correcting event. Mashiach is what puts us, again, I will say, on the right path. And even if all this animosity exists, when Mashiach comes, all of Klal Yisrael will rejoice. Hadjun alach, Elam Metzias. I will say, by the way, what a beautiful way to end the parak also. If you think about it, Elam Metzias is all about lost objects. And I will say, one of the saddest things about Klal Yisrael's journey is we lose so much over the course of the journey. We lose a love for one another, an appreciation for one another. Elam Metzias is about finding things that are lost. And the beautiful part is, the part ends off by telling us when Mashiach comes, we'll find that love for one another that has often been lost over the ages. So often that love has been replaced by disdain, by animosity, by negativity. It's lost. It's lost. The good news is when Mashiach comes, Emir Tashem Halavai Bekarov, it'll all be found again. Well, let's go weiter. Mafkid Eitzah Chavera. So, by the way, I just want to point out, not doing justice to that Gemara at all. I just feel like a sense of full disclosure over here. There's so much more to do there, but Emir Tashem, okay, you'll have the homework. So, Gemara says weiter. Hamafkid Eitzah Chavera Behema Okelim Benignivu Osha Avdu. Well, so here we go. This is now the parak that is going to talk all about Shomrim, right? Not the organization, but again, but the different levels, right? The different people who are obligated to go ahead and guard or watch an item. So we'll see. Here we go. I deposited an item with Ruvain. Hamafkid eitzu chavero behemo kelim, either an animal or utensils. V'nignevu osha avdu. And let's say again, Ruvain either lost it or it was stolen from Ruvain. What's the halacha? And I both say we're going to see over here. Shomer has two options. Option number one is Shilem v'lo ratza lishava. So Rabbi said we're going to see that under certain circumstances, a shomer could take an oath that he did not misappropriate or do anything wrong with the object, and that frees him from liability. Again, when that is, how that is, we're going to have to discuss. But Lamaisa, we see that concept. So I'll say, so what do you do in the following case? Let's say in this case over here, the Ruvain, the Shomer, says, you know what, I don't want to swear. I'll pay you. Right? You deposited an ox with me. The ox is worth $1,000. I'm not getting into oaths. Here's $1,000 and we're done. Shilim v'lo ratza l'shava, shari amru shomer chinam, nishpa v'yotze. So for example, we'll say an unpaid custodian. And we'll discuss all about this. A shomer chinam has the ability to exempt himself from liability by simply paying. So he paid, he doesn't want to swear. So the Gemara says, nimtza. Okay, fine. So we'll say it's case closed. But now it's not. What happens? Sometime later on, nimtza haganov. So I'll say, indeed the object was stolen, and sometime later on we track down the thief. So when we ultimately find the thief is going to either have to pay kefel, double payment, or if he slaughtered and sold it 4 or 5 times, so the Gemara says, Lemi Mishalim, who does he pay? Who does he pay? To which the Gemara answers, Lemi Shapikadon Etzlo. This is very interesting. Also, what the Mishnah is essentially saying is like this. When Reuven goes ahead and pays the money and doesn't swear, pays the value of the item and doesn't swear, what Reuven essentially does is Reuven acquires the item. He acquires it. Now, what that mechanism is, we'll have to see in the Gemara, but he acquires it. Which means that subsequently, when they find the thief, who gets the kefel, or who gets the arba v'chamisha? Reuven the shomer. A really interesting halacha. Not me, the owner, right? Because essentially, by getting paid for the object, I'm out. I'm done. Now Reuven essentially becomes the owner of the object. He gets the kefil or the arba v'chamisha. Pretty incredible. So the Gemara says, Nishpa v'lo ratza l'shalem. What happens on the other hand? Again, same case. I deposited my ox with Reuven. Reuven claims it got stolen. And he swears. In this case, he swears, I did not misappropriate the ox, in which case he is exempted from everything. In that case, in that case, I will say, what's the halacha? In that case, the halacha is, again, where he swore and exempted himself. If we subsequently find the thief, who gets the kefel, or who gets the arba v'chamisha? Me, the owner of the object itself. Okay, incredible. So the Gemara says, first of all, starts with a very simple question. First of all, we'll say, why does the Mishnah have to say, Hamafkid eitza chavera behema okelim? I deposit with my friend an animal or utensils. Why do you need to say both? Just say one, I get the point. To which the Gemara says, I'll tell you why. Ditana behema havamina behema hu demakni lekfelim mishum dinafish tircha li luye lafuka. Because if the Mishnah would have just said, talked about an animal, I would have said it's the case of an animal where after the shomer pays, I'm makna him the kefil and the arba v'chamisha. Why? Because there's a lot of tircha, there's a lot of exertion that is involved in guarding an animal. So it makes sense that if he's willing to swear, if he's willing to pay, that I'm makna him the kefil. But in general, by watching utensils where there's not a lot of exertion involved over here, then halacha l'maisa again, perhaps I'm not makna him the kefil. Vitana kelim, and if it would have just said kelim, hava mina kelim hu demakni lekfelim mishum delo nafish kfeilayhu. Aval behema. If it would have just said Kalim. I would have said Kalim is when I, the owner, am makne the kefil to the shomer. Why? Because again, it's Kalim. How much is kefil going to be? It's not such a big amount. I'm willing to be makne that to him. However, aval behema dechitava chubachar b'shan daled v'hei ema lo makne lekfela. But I will say when it comes to a behema, where kefil is not the big payout. What's the big payout? Tavach umachar, right? Slaughtering and selling where there's daled v'hei. Maybe I'm not makne that. Therefore, tzricha. Therefore, I will say the Mishnah wants to teach that the mechanics, as espoused in the Mishnah, apply to both behema and kalim. Incredible. So therefore, I will say that's our halacha. Here we go. Maskif l'rani bar chama v'ha ein adam makne davar shalab ali olam. But how does this whole thing work? I was about to say, how can you be maknes something to someone that doesn't exist? I was about to say, let's play this out over here. I go ahead, I give my ox to Ruvain. He's a shomer chinam. Say, Ruvain, watch this for me. I come back to collect my ox. Ruvain says, I'm so sorry it was stolen. Say, Ruvain, that's fine, but there's a mechanism for this. Either pay or swear. Ruvain says, you know what, I'm going to pay. I'm going to pay, here's $1,000 for your ox. I say, okay, Reuven, you paid me now. Reuven said, just so you should know, if they ever track down the thief, and if there's ever kefil or arba v'chamisha, it's yours. How can you do that, Abba saying? You can't be makna. You can't give over ownership of something that doesn't exist in this world. In other words, remember, in order to be makna something, there has to be a kinyan. There has to be a mechanism of transition, of acquisition. So that only works with something that exists. The Gemara says, and even according to Rabbi Meir, who says that a person can acquire something or can be makna, can give over rights to something that doesn't yet exist. I will say, you know what's an example of that? You can give over fruit, right? Let's say I own a palm tree. The palm tree is going to go ahead and sprout dates. The dates don't exist, but you know what does exist? The tree exists. And again, palm trees sprout dates. So that's a future right that I can give over because it essentially does exist in some form. So how do you compare Stekel? David the Asu, because they're going to flourish, they're going to sprout. Aval hacha top of lamadalid. Aval hacha miyemer demigavna. I will say, but over here, demiganva. Sorry, but over here, who says that the object is even ever going to be stolen? So we'll say, that's the Gemara is asking over here. How could I be makna? How could I convey ownership over a future right that doesn't exist? To which the Gemara says, here we go. And if you say that the object ultimately is going to be stolen, so we'll say 34a second line, who says that the thief is ever going to be found? And if they find the thief, who says that ultimately the thief is going to pay? Perhaps Dilma Modi Umiftar. We'll say, remember again, so Kefel Arba Vechamisha is a knas. There's a very easy way to get out of a knas. What's the easy way to get out of a knas? Admit it. Admit it. So we'll say, so essentially what the Gemara says is, I don't understand the mechanics of this. In other words, I'll accept the principle. The principle is if I deposit an object with a shomer, he then claims that it was stolen, lost, and this works best in the case of a shomer chinam, an unpaid custodian who is not chayiv for geneva va'aveda. Okay, so now I go ahead and I come to the shomer. I say, Shomer, give me back my object. Shomer says, I'm so sorry, it was stolen. It was stolen. I say, fine, swear or pay. He says, I'm going to pay. Now the Mishnah says, okay, as a result of him paying, he's entitled to the future kefel or arba v'chamisha. The Gemara says, I don't understand, how does that entitlement work? What are the mechanics? How am I conveying that right to him? So here we go, I'll say two opinions. Amar Rava, Nasa ke'omer lo, l'chishatigno v'tirtze v'tashlimeni, hare parasi kinuyi l'chame achshav. So we'll say this is fascinating. Rava says, this essentially is built in to our agreement from the beginning. When I give over my ox to Ruvain to watch, right? Ruvain is a shomer chinim, an unpaid custodian. Therefore, Ruvain is patzer on geneva va'aveda. So when I give over that ox to Ruvain, essentially, there's an unwritten part of our agreement, or even an unspoken part of our agreement. What's the unspoken part? It's like this: Ruvain, watch my ox. Watch my ox. In parentheses, if this ox is stolen, and you choose to just pay me instead of swearing, I retroactively convey ownership of the ox to you to this moment. It's a lot to unpack. And therefore, what does that mean? That turns out that when the ox is stolen, and Reuven and Reuven pays me, he retroactively becomes the owner of the ox from the moment that I deposited it with him. Which now means that because he's the retroactive owner, therefore what? Should the thief be found, it makes sense that Reuven is the one who is entitled to the kefil or to the arba v'chamisha. Beautiful. Beautiful. Maskef Rabbi Zera. Rabbi Zera raises a contradiction. There are a problem with this. If that's the case, afilu gizo seha vevlado seha nami. But 1 second. If Reuven is indeed the retroactive owner, then Abba say Reuven should also be entitled to any shearings as well as any offspring during the duration of the time that he watched the animal. Right? Abba say if he is the retroactive owner, that means that when that animal is stolen, any shearings or any offspring that came about between the time that the animal was deposited with him and stolen should also become Reuven's. Yet, but we learned chutz migizo seva v'ladoseh. We'll say we learned that halacha l'maisa Reuven is not entitled to that. He's not entitled to that. To which the Gemara says, "Umay paska stamad demilsa shivcha da'asami alma avid inish dema." I'm sorry. El Amar Rabbi Zera, thank you. El Amar Rabbi Zera Omer Lo Chutz Migizo Sa Vavlado Sa. Shabbos say Rabbi Zera qualifies Rava, and said Shabbos say so. Here's the agreement. Here we go. I deposit an ox with Reuven. I say Reuven, watch my ox. Shomer Chinam. Reuven says no problem. I say Reuven, by the way, here's the way this works. Should this ox be stolen, and should you choose to pay me instead of swearing, I just want to tell you that I'm hereby conveying ownership of the ox retroactively to you to this moment. Right? Rabbi Zera says yeah. And by the way, and in parentheses, with the exception of offspring and shearings. Okay, beautiful. Umay Pascha. So the Gemara says, how do you know to accept that exception? So the Gemara says, Stamad milso shivcha da asami alma avid inish demakni, shivcha de megufalo avid inshi demakni. Because they will say it makes sense that I, as the owner, I'm willing to convey to Reuven so appreciation or benefit that comes from an external source. What I'm not willing to do is sign away benefit that comes from the animal itself right now. In other words, it doesn't make sense that I'm going to give away the shearings and the offspring. So the shearings and the offspring, which is shevach, improvement that comes from the animal itself, that I'm retaining. But future rights or future benefits that may accrue external to the animal, that I am happy to go ahead and convey to him retroactively. So I'll say, so bottom line, what Rava is coming along to teach us, Rava is coming here, I'll actually say, Ikadami, an alternate version of this, Amar Rava, Nasek Omer Lo, when I deposit the animal with Reuven, it's as if I'm saying to him, L'chishatigno v'tirtza v'tishlemeni, when you go ahead, right, I'm depositing it with you. If the animal is stolen and you choose to pay me instead of swear, so what happens? So samuch lignevasa kinu yilacha. I hereby convey ownership of this animal to you 1 moment before it's stolen. So we'll say, see here, this is an alternate version. Now, in both of these versions of Rava, what's happening over here is when the animal is stolen and the shomer decides to pay and not swear, there is a retroactive conveyance of ownership. In the first version, the retroactive conveyance of ownership goes back to the moment that the animal is initially deposited. In the second version of Rava, the retroactive conveyance of ownership is to the moment before the animal was stolen. So the Gemara said, "My benayu, what's the practical difference between these two opinions?" Ika benayu kushid Rabbi Zera. So we'll say, so first of all, again, one nafkamina is Rabbi Zera about what do you do with offspring and shearings. So according to the first version, this is a potential problem. Therefore, you need an exception clause. According to the second version, it's not a problem, right? Why? Because I'm only conveying ownership of Reuven to Reuven the moment before the animal is stolen, and therefore, again, there are no shearings or offspring there. Another nafkamina would be, so the Gemara says, "Inami kedikayma ba'agam." Both say second nafkamina would be in a case where the animal, when the animal was stolen, it wasn't in Reuven's possession, rather it was out like grazing in the marsh. So according to the first approach, since retroactive conveyance of ownership is to the moment it was deposited with Reuven is retroactive owner. According to the second approach, if conveyance of ownership only happens the moment before it was stolen, if at that moment it wasn't in Reuven's domain, then Reuven can't acquire it. So I will say, so bottom line again, and we'll see the halacha l'maisa, but bottom line what Rava is saying is like this. In order for this concept to work, I'm depositing an object with Ruvain to watch. Ruvain is a shomer chinam. The object is stolen. Ruvain chooses to pay instead of swear. To pay instead of swear. So now what happens? What does the halacha say? Should the thief be tracked down? Halacha l'maisa, Ruvain gets the kefel or the arba v'chamisha. How does that work? Rava posits there must be a retroactive conveyance of ownership. That's why when the thief is found retroactively, it turns out Reuven is the owner. That's why he's entitled to these additional amounts. At what point does he acquire retroactive ownership? Two girsaos in Rava, either retroactively to the moment that the animal was deposited with him, or retroactively to the moment before it was stolen. Good. Now we have some clarity as to the mechanism over here. Here we go. Shilem v'lo ratza lishava. So we'll say, so Amar Rabbi Chira Abba, Amar Rabbi Yochanan. Lo shilem mamish. By the way, for Reuven to be entitled to the kefah of the arba v'chamisha, it doesn't literally mean that he has to pay the value of the animal. Rather, ela kevan shamar hareini mishalim afa pi shalosh shilem. So Rabbi says interesting. So Rabbi Yochanan says, once Reuven expresses his willingness to pay. In other words, once Reuven says, okay, I'm not going to swear, I'm going to pay, that statement, even though he has not actually yet paid, entitles him to kefil and arba v'chamisha. Right? So we'll say, so again, I just want to play this out for you just for a second. Right? Let's just put this all together just for a second. I deposit animal with Reuven. Reuven, you're my shomer chinam, watch my animal. Reuven says, great, no problem. Now it turns out, according to Rava, that when I deposit my animal, there's an unspoken statement. What's the unspoken statement? Reuven, if this animal is stolen, if you choose to pay me instead of swear, I hereby convey ownership of this animal retroactively to you, whatever moment that is. Okay, fine. Animal is stolen. Reuven pays. Or I should say differently. Animal is stolen. Reuven says, "Okay, I'm paying. An hour later, they find the thief. Rabbi Yochanan says, even though Reuven has not yet actually paid, because he said he's going to pay, he is entitled to the kefal or to the arba v'chamisha. Okay, let's analyze. So the Gemara says, Tanan, Shilem v'lo ratza l'shavash. So the Gemara says, here's the problem. The Mishnah says, Shilem. The Mishnah says, Reuven paid. If he paid and he did not want to swear, which sounds like I will say, paid means what? He tendered the money. So the Gemara says, Shilem in lo shilem lo. So it sounds like only if he paid is he entitled to the kefal and arba v'chamisha, but just a statement of willingness to pay doesn't give you ownership over these items. To which the Gemara says, Ema seifa nishpa v'lo ratza l'shalem. You will say, what does the end of the Mishnah say? If he swore, but he did not want to pay. Taima de lo ratza. The reason ultimately is because he didn't want to pay. Ha ratza, which sounds like if he wanted to pay, afa pi shalosh shilem. So the Gemara says, you're right. The truth is, from the Mishnah itself, you can't really glean Rabbi Yochanan's point. So Tanya Kavasi Rabbi Yochanan. So let's bring a brayso to support Rabbi Yochanan. Again, Rabbi Yochanan is of the opinion that says, even if the shomer didn't actually pay, but expressed a willingness to pay, ultimately, again, that is enough. So the Gemara says, let's bring a brayso to support him. Hasocher paramechavero is someone rents a cow from his friend. Benignava. Now, I just want to point out what's happening over here. Up until now, we've really been focused on a shomer chinam, an unpaid custodian. Unpaid custodian, ultimately, again, is really chayev for very little. Remember, again, responsibility, it corresponds to degree of benefit. So therefore, again, the less benefit you have, the less responsibility you have. A shomer chinam really doesn't have the right of usage, right? A shomer chinam is just supposed to watch or guard the animal. Because he doesn't have usage, therefore he has diminished liability. So really the only thing that a shomer chinam is responsible for is really pshia, negligence. A socher, on the other hand, a renter, has really full use of the object. Because he has full use of the object, therefore what? He has full responsibility. So the Gemara says, a socher paramechavero, somebody rents a cow from his friend v'nignava, and the cow was stolen. So we'll say the socher is going to be chayiv for that. V'amar hala, hareini b'shani ve'eni nishba. And the socher says, you know what? I'm just going to pay. I don't want to swear. And then they find the thief. So what's the halacha? The socher gets the kefel. Amra Papa. So we'll say, so remember again, what's the raya to this? So remember again, v'amar hala hareini mishalim. What's happening in this brayso? What is the socher doing? What is the socher doing? He is saying, I'm going to pay. And yet, what do you see from here? The statement to pay entitles him ultimately to kefel. Say, if Rabbi say this, Brisa backs up Rabbi Yochanan. So nugget number 2 is that the shomer doesn't actually have to pay in order to be entitled to the kefel, to the arba v'chamisha. Rather, a statement of willingness to pay ultimately entitles him. Incredible. Amar Pava. Here we go. Shomer chinam. So just keep a running tally of these halachas as we have it, right? So far, what have we gotten from here? Number 1, the concept that in general, a shomer has the right to say, I'm paying and not swearing, and when he does that, he is entitled to future compensation from the ganov, right? Kefla arba v'chamisha. That's number 1. Number 2, Rava, what's the mechanics of that? Retroactive conveyance of ownership. Rabbi Yochanan, number 3, Aloch Lamaisa, the shomer attains this entitlement to kefil or to arba v'chamisha by simply articulating a willingness to pay, even though he has not yet actually paid. Good. Next, Amar Papa, shomer chinam kevan shomer pashati makne lekfela. Supposed to listen to this. Rapapa says another halacha. Shomer chinam. So same case. I deposit my cow with Ruvain. Ruvain is a shomer chinam. I come back to collect it, and what happens? Ruvain says, I was negligent. I was negligent. Pashati. So obviously, by admitting that he was negligent, what happens over here? He's chayiv. He's obligated to pay. Now, I will say again, essentially, also by admitting pashati, what he's saying is, I commit myself to pay. So what's talacha? Makni lekfela. Ultimately, again, in that case, the shomer is entitled to kefel. Why? The boy pater nafshe bigneva. Now, I will say, here's what's interesting. The shomer chinam could have made another claim. What's the other claim he could have made? It was stolen. Remember, shomer chinam is pater on geneva va'aveda if the object is lost or it's not lost. Now, interestingly enough, so he's making a claim that makes him liable. And we'll say, obviously, just logically, because he's saying pashati, he's therefore saying, Allah I owe you the money. Owing you the money is a commitment to pay. Commitment to pay entitles you ultimately to future kefil. Okay, shomer sachar, kevin shomer nigneva, makin lekfil. Similarly, again, if a shomer sachar, a paid custodian, if he says, I had the animal, it was stolen from me, when he makes that statement, he makes himself liable. Makni lekfela. Therefore, again, just by making himself liable, he makes himself liable to pay. Once you're liable to pay, that ultimately means you're entitled to future payments. Makni lekfela, di boy pater nafshe b'shvura umesa. Interestingly enough, he could have patered himself, he could have exempted himself, ultimately, again, with a claim of Shavura or Mesa. Okay? Shoel, Sha'amar Harini Mishalim. So the Gemara says, so interestingly enough, if a Shoel says, I'm ready to pay, so lo makni lekfela, he's not entitled to future kefel. Why? B'may havile lemifter nafshe. Ultimately, again, because Rabbi says Shoel, now we'll talk about all of this in greater depth, but a shoel has the greatest level of liability because a shoel has complete usage of the item. So the Gemara says, so therefore again, even if he admits liability, he's not entitled to kefil. Why? So because what could a shoel, so in all these previous cases, what we recognize is all of these other individuals could have made a claim that exempted them from liability. So the fact that they did not make that claim, but they made an inferior claim, so really highlights the veracity of their claim, and therefore they're entitled to future potential payments of kefil arba v'chamisha. A shoel, on the other hand, has really no claim that he could make to exempt himself. Therefore, again, Abba say he is not entitled to future kefil, because after all, what could he have exempted himself? As Abba say, now there is one exemption for shoel. What's the one exemption? But mesa machmas malacha. So Abba say, and we'll talk about all of this, but for a borrower, the one thing that he could claim which would exempt him from liability is if the animal died doing its designated work. So for example, let's say Ruvain borrowed a cow from me, and he borrowed an ox, and he borrowed this ox for the purpose of plowing. And then the ox was plowing a field and died while plowing the field. Technically speaking, a borrower is exempt from that. So he could have made that claim. So this is actually very interesting. Mesa machmas malacha lo shlicha. This is an uncommon occurrence. So because it's an uncommon occurrence, it's not really a claim he could have made. Okay. Another alternate version of this. Amar Papa. Shoel nami kevan shamar harini mishalim makni lekfela. So we'll say in this alternate version, Papa says even a shoel who says I'm ready to pay. I don't have the animal I'm ready to pay, he also gets the kefil. Why? So fine. So the Rabbi said, Shoel, Achi Shalim. A Shoel will say, for a Shoel to be entitled to kefil and to Arba v'chamisha, a statement, right, or an articulation of willingness to pay is not enough. He actually has to pay, right, in order to be entitled to kefil or Arba v'chamisha. What's the logic? My timer, hoyil v'chol hana shalo b'diburo lo makni lekfela. Or shol is different. We'll say by all the other people, once they articulate a willingness to pay, we'll say in one of two ways. There are two ways you articulate a willingness to pay. Either by admitting what happened to the animal and therefore making yourself liable to payment, or by saying, I'll just pay. In all of those other cases, once you articulate that, then Allah you're entitled to the kefil, to the Arba v'chamisha. This is Rabbi Yochanan, just through your articulation of a willingness to pay. The Gemara suggests all of that applies to all the other people except for a shoel. Except the shoel. Why is a shoel different? The Gemara says, Hoil v'chol hana shalo, since the shoel enjoys complete benefit and complete usage of the animal, b'diburo lo makni lekfela. The owner does not convey ownership. The owner does not convey the right to kefil or ta'arba v'chamisha with a mere articulation or a statement of willingness to pay, but only through actual payment itself. Okay, very interesting. Tanya Kavase de Rav Zvid. We have a brayso that supports Rav Zvid about the shoel. Hashol par mechavero v'nigneva. So we'll say if I lend my cow to Ruvain and it was stolen, Bikidim hashol v'shilem, and the shol, you know what Ruvain does? Ruvain just shows up at my house with a check. Here's the money. Here's $1,000 for your cow. Shalom Aisavi Achagaklim Sahaganov. And then the thief is found. Mishalim Tashlume Kefal Shoel. Ultimately, again, the kefil goes to the shoel. The Rabbi was saying, now why does this work? Why does this work? Pepashtos, because what happened in this case, there wasn't an articulation to pay. Rather, what was there? What was there? Actual payment. So according to the first version of Papa, this works. According to the second version, perhaps it should be problematic. Should this be any stronger than the Mishnah? What does the Mishnah say? The Mishnah also said Shilem, that he paid. And how do we establish the Mishnah? Kimna ba'amar. Both say in the Mishnah's case, we established that Shilem doesn't mean you paid. Rather, what does Shilem mean? What does Shilem mean? I articulated a willingness to pay. Okay, so the Gemara says as follows. Good. Okay, Hachanami ba'amar. So the Gemara says, 1 second. Midami. How can you compare the cases? Hasam lo katani kidem. I will say in the Mishnah it doesn't use the lashon of kidem v'shilem. I will say kidem v'shilem literally means he proactively paid. Hacha katani kidem. Here it says kidem, proactivity. The Gemara says my kidem. So the Gemara says kidem va'amar. Maybe kidem doesn't mean he proactively paid, but rather what does kidem mean? The shoel proactively said to the owner, I'm going to pay. I'm going to pay. I hamed diktani gabe sochar va'amar the gabe shoel kidem shmamina dafka katani. I'll say maybe not. Since by sochar it used lashon of amar, and by shoel it used lashon of kidem, maybe kidem really means he actually paid. To which the Gemara says, "Midi gabe hadadi tanya." Are these things written together that you have to splice the wording so particularly? Shailunu l'tanai debei Rabbi Chia. Udebei Rabbi Yoshia v'amri gabi hadadi tanya. And he said, no, these things were actually taught all together, and therefore I both say the specificity in lashon is meaningful. Therefore, the fact that it says kidem by shoel indicates to us that the only way for a shoel to acquire future rights to kefel and arba v'chamisha is how? Is if he actually pays. If he actually pays. By everyone else, the shomer doesn't have to actually pay in order to acquire a future right to kefil and arba v'chamisha. Rather, all he has to do is articulate a willingness to pay. So in this regard, shol will be different than everyone else. Okay, incredible. Again, I will say we'll delve a little bit more into all of this, but here's the point to remember. Here's the point to remember. Rabbi Yochanan's statement, essentially, that as soon as the shomer commits himself to paying, if the thief is that entitles the shomer ultimately again to future payments of kefel or arba v'chamisha. The only potential exception to that rule is a shoel. And a shoel, so we're going to see in general in halacha, kind of lives in a sphere of his own, since he enjoys unbridled usage and access ultimately to the item. Okay, incredible. Let's go. We'll say 2 hands up from the bottom. We're doing good. Pshita. Amra Edi Mishalim v'chazar. Okay, we'll say, watch this. This is great. I deposit my cow with Ruvain, right? I go over to Ruvain, and we'll say, let's just take it an easy case. Ruvain's a shomer chinam. Shomer chinam is always like the easiest case to exist in. So, right, I go over to Ruvain. Ruvain, where's my cow? Right? And Ruvain says, you know what? It was lost, but I'm not paying. I'm not paying. I'm going to swear. I'm going to swear that I didn't do anything wrong, and I'm going to exempt myself from liability. And then Reuven says, you know what, I changed my mind, I'm paying. So both say, so what's the status in that case? Okay, he's paying, and therefore we'll say, because he's paying, therefore what? He is entitled to if they find the thief, he is entitled to the kefel or to the arba v'chamisha. Good. What about this case? Ela Amar Harini Mishalem. Watch it, so we'll say, let's say Reuven says, I'm going to pay you. Same case, I'm going to pay you. Amud Beis, will say Amud Beis. The Chazava Amra Eini Mishalim, and then Reuven turns around and says, "You know what? I changed my mind. I'm not swearing. Now both say, now watch this. Then what? Then I both say, let's say they find the thief. Now this kefal and arba v'chamisha. How do we look at Reuven's flip-flopping over here? So the Gemara says, so I want him to say, okay, he changed his mind. Look, apparently he is entitled to change his mind. Or as well say, people are entitled to change their mind. So Lamais again over here, he said he was going to swear. Now, he said he was going to pay, and now he said he's not going to pay. So therefore he's taking an oath. Okay, so now that we found the thief, who gets the kefir, who gets the arba v'chamisha? Me, the owner of the object. Oh, Dilma, no. B'milsakai v'dachu Yehud kamad chilei. So this is very interesting. Or maybe not. Maybe Reuven still plans on paying. I said, why did he say he's not paying? Why, Rabbi saying? To buy himself time. I was about to say, brother, we see this, right? We've seen this by other cases, Modeh, Metzia, other cases like this, where sometimes people will say, I'm not paying. But they don't really mean I'm not paying. Rather, what do they mean? What do they really mean? I need a little bit more time to get the money together. So if a person intends on paying, but they need a little bit more time to get the money together, so I say, so ultimately, why don't they just say what they mean? Oh, why don't people say what they mean in life? That is the most incredible question. Because I will say people have pride. It's hard for a person to say, I don't have the money. So it says, I changed my mind. So how do we interpret? So again, I will say in this case, Reuven said, I'm going to pay. Then Reuven changed his mind. He said, I'm not going to pay. So how do we view that? Is this really recanting, and therefore he's going to take a shavua? Or no, he still intends on paying. He's just buying himself a little bit more time. So here we go. Amar, is supposed to say, so we're going to go through a whole bunch of cases. Now get ready. Put your seatbelt on. Whole bunch of cases. Amar, harini mishalim umeis. Ooh, okay. Reuven says, I'm going to pay, right? And what happens? And then he died. Reuven died. And then his kids say, we're not paying. Hopefully they waited till after the Levaya to do this, right? But the right? I'm not paying this, right? This has nothing to do with us. I'm not paying this. So what's the halacha? So do we say that the kids are recanting on the debt owed by their father? Or maybe no. In other words, they plan on paying. But what I will say, they're buying a little bit of time, right? They have to settle the estate. They don't know what's going on, so they have to buy themselves a little bit of time. Okay, Shalmu banim mai. So the Gemara says, so what happens if the kids paid? So Matzi Armalo. So I say, now watch this. So that's right. So case one is Reuven himself flip-flop. Case two is Reuven said he's going to pay. He's paid, but he died. And now the kids say we're not paying. So again, is that them recanting on the debts of their father, or ultimately trying to buy themselves time? Another case. Shalmu banamai. We'll say, now watch this. Same case. Reuven died. So again, Reuven was watching my cow, right? I come to Reuven, it's gone. Reuven says, okay, I'm going to pay. Reuven dies. His kids honor his debt, right? Honor his debt. Okay, honor his debt, pay his debt, and they pay. They pay me. I would say, what happens? Now, Matzi Amar Lahu, Ki Aknoi Kefela La'avuchun, Da'avali Nayach Nafshoi, L'didachu Lo. So I'll say, so do I have the right to say, hey guys, kids, I'm so sorry for your loss, but I'm not paying you. Why? When was I willing to be makneh, the kefil, or the arba v'chamisha, right? That was to your father, because he did me a tova. In other words, he really exerted himself in watching my animal. But you guys, I'm not giving you anything. I was supposed to say, I'm not. In other words, why would I give you anything? You didn't do anything. or maybe not. Maybe not. We'll say maybe whoever ultimately pays the debt, or whoever pays the value of the cow, ultimately, again, maybe that's the person who is entitled to the chevel arba v'chamisha, even the kids. Next case, shilem lebanim mai. So I will say, in this case, watch this. What happens if the owner of the animal died? Right, the owner of the animal died, and now what happens? Ruvain the shomer pays the principal amount or the value of the animal to the children of the owner. So what's the halacha? Matzu amrilei ki aknu lach avuna kfela davarit le naich benafshe. So maybe the kids, the heirs of the owner of the animal, say to Ruvain, listen, Ruvain, we're not makna you the kefil or the arba v'chamisha. That's something our father would have done because of a relationship you had with him and because of something you did with him. However, again, so the Gemara says, you helped out our father, aval anon lididan lo, but you didn't do anything for us. This is the heirs of the owner, right? The heirs of the owner of the animal. They're like, to Ruvain, our father would have given you kefil and arba v'chamisha because you did something for him, but you really didn't do anything to help us. O dilma loshna. Maybe it doesn't make a difference. Okay, another case. Shalmu banim lebanim. Interesting case. Let's say in this case over here, both same case, right? But everyone died. The owner of the animal died, and the owner of the animal died, and shomer died. But now, kids of the shomer pay the kids of the owner. So what happens in that case? I don't know what I will say. So in that case, do the kids of the shomer get the kefil of the arba v'chamisha? Another case, shilem mechtzamai. And I will say, what happens in a case where the shomer himself, I'll say, so let's say for argument's sake, what happens over here? I deposited the cow with Ruvain. Now what happens? I come to collect it from Ruvain. It's no longer there, right? Ruvain says, I'm going to pay. But what does he do? Ruvain pays. Ruvain says, the cow was worth $1,000. I'll pay you $500. So we'll say, then they subsequently find the thief. Is Ruvain entitled to half of the kefil or half of the arba v'chamisha? Or, what's the halacha? Shal shtei paros v'shilim achas mehen. Or we'll say what happened. I lent Ruvain 2 cows, right? I come back to collect them. They're both missing. He pays me back for 1 cow. So we'll say, so once again, is Ruvain entitled, and then they find the thief, is Ruvain entitled to 50% of the kefil or the arba v'chamisha? Next, shal min hashutfim v'shilem le'echad mehen. But let's say I borrow a cow from partners, right? I borrow a cow from Reuven and Shimon, and now what happens? It's gone. I don't want to swear. I just want to pay, and I pay back Reuven, but I don't pay back Shimon. Then they find the thief, right? Am I entitled again to half of the kefil or half of the arba v'chamisha? Or shutfim sheshalu. Or Reuven and Shimon, Reuven is a top, put on your seatbelts, right? Reuven and Shimon are partners, and they borrowed from one individual, and one of them paid, one of them did not. Is the one who paid entitled to 50% of the kefil arba v'chamisha? So the Gemara says, what's the halacha there? Next, shal min ha'isha b'shilem lebayla. Interesting case. Let's say I borrowed from a woman. Now, what's the case over here? Look at Rashi. Shal min ha'isha para shal nichse melug shakeren shala va'peros lebal. So we'll say, watch this. I go over to Rachel. Rachel has a cow that's nichse melug. Nichse melug is her marital property. Now, remember, how does it work with nichse melug? So we know this very well from our Gittin and Ksuvas days. How does nichse melug work? Title is retained by Rachel, but usage is Ruvain's. Right, her husband's. He gets peros. So Shalmin Aisha. Ultimately, again, I go ahead and I borrow from Rachel. Right? And what happens? Now the object is stolen. And I will say, I don't want to swear, I'm just going to pay. And I end up paying, who do I pay? I pay Ruvain. Now I shouldn't have done that. I should have really paid Rachel. But I paid Ruvain. What's the halacha? So now they find the thief. I paid Ruvain. Am I entitled to the kefil or to the arba v'chamisha or not? Okay, so that's another shayla. Next, isha sheshala v'shilem baila. Now let's say, what happens if a woman borrowed an object? Ultimately, again, the object is lost. She decides, you know what, I don't want to swear, I want to pay, but her husband pays. Is the husband entitled to the kefil arba v'chamisha, or does she get it? So both say, answer to all these questions, Teku. Right? So let's say, so ultimately, again, Tishbi Yitaris Kushios of the Ibayos will have to wait for Mashiach to come ultimately again to resolve the debt. So we'll say, one of the most beautiful things, whenever we think about Mashiach, Whenever we think about Mashiach, so we think about again Beis Hamikdash, Mehir Rabbi Yameinu, we think about beautiful third Beis Hamikdash, the Kohanim doing their abode. We think about Tchias HaMesim, resurrection of the dead. You know, I say one of the most beautiful things about when Mashiach comes is resolution of doubt. I will say we walk around. I will say, I'll just tell you something amazing. I was at the Kiddush this past Shabbos. I was saying something so beautiful. One of the beautiful children from our Kila, Ruby Blumenfeld, came over to me. She said, Mamish, like, this is like, you know, if you've ever been to Kiddush, like, it's a little bit hefker, like a lot going on over here. And she said, Rabbi Silber, I have a question. So I've been there because you can't hear anything. She says, if Hashem could do anything, why doesn't he stop the war? Why doesn't he stop the war? So my first reaction was, we don't do this at Kiddush, right? Like we don't do this at Kiddush, right? Let's schedule a time. Let's schedule a time, right? Right? If you have like a quick one-off, like I dropped my spoon in my sink, you know, and whatever, we could do that. Deep theological. I'll say, it was like the most. It was probably like the most tamimistic and like just innocent and beautiful and pure and holy moment I had in my whole week. And I would say, so again, I tried my best to explain, you know, in the cacophony of Kiddush, to go ahead and how HaKadosh Baruch Hu runs the world and Hashem does everything and it's great and we don't understand. I will say, but, you know, we use that answer a lot, that we don't understand the way Hashem runs the world, because we don't. And things happen every single day that ultimately not prevent us, but things happen every day that defy our human understanding. But I will say it's important to understand that one of the most beautiful aspects of Mashiach is there is no doubt. When Mashiach comes, part of Messianic arrival, part of Messianic redemption is resolution of doubt. So Rabbi says, so imagine a life where whatever questions you have, you can get answers. That the veil is lifted, like the curtain is pulled back, and you can understand why HaKadosh Baruch Hu does the things that he does. That's Teiku. That's Tiku. When the Gemara talks about Tishbi Yitares Kushos V'ibayos, Elio will answer our questions, right? If you understand that at the end of the day, when Mashiach comes, there's resolution of doubt. I will say, can you imagine that? To me, that's even more incredible than the Beis HaMikdash. That's even more incredible than Tchias HaMesim. To not walk around with burning theological questions about why things happen, but to understand how HaKadosh Baruch Hu runs his world, that's what we look forward to most when Mashiach comes. And that's what the Gemara is trying to stoke our thirst for, our imagination for, our understanding for. Teiko, there's so many questions. I will say, to be honest, Mashiach comes, these are not going to be the first ones on our list that we need answered. These are interesting. I'm looking forward. Halavai. I'll say, can you imagine? We'll get to Rav Meir Shapiro, get to the Lublina Rav. Try to be. I think we're going to try to book him to give a Daf Yomi Shir Miras Hashem. How incredible will that be? We'll have to polish up on our Yiddish a little bit, right? But Lamaisa, how incredible will that be? But the truth is also, you know, getting resolution to the shilas on Bava Metzia Daf Lamadalam Abayz, that's not what's keeping me up at night. But the resolution to all the other questions that I walk around with, that's what I look forward to most in Meretz Hashem in the Messianic era. So I'll say, Halavai, we should be Zocha Meretz Hashem to get the answers to all of our questions. And here, Rabbi Yameinu, Amen. Amar Rafuna. Ravuna says as follows. Here we go. Mashbi'in also shavua she'ena b'shuso. So Rabbi said this is a very important halacha. A very important halacha. So Rabbi says halacha l'maisa. We go ahead and we administer an oath. So Rabbi says, so this is a separate and distinct shavua, and a shavua that every single shomer makes. So Rabbi says, up until now, what we can see when we speak about a shvua, it's a shvua that I haven't misappropriated, a shvua that I haven't done anything wrong. So it comes along Rav Huna says, in general, even if a shomer wants to swear, right? Even if a shomer wants to swear, wants to pay, we administer a shvua that says she'ena b'shuso. We say, okay, you want to pay, that's fine. Swear that the object is not in your possession. Take a quick look at Rashi. Mashbi'an also, amasnisin koi, afa pishu mishalim kidiktani shilim v'lo ratza lishava, mashbi'an also shvua she'ena b'shuso. See, even though halacha l'maisa, the shomer wants to pay, we make him swear that you don't have possession of the item. Why? My taima chayshinan shema ein of nasanba. Rabbi say, what are we concerned about? We are concerned for the following case. You can have a shomer, Rabbi say, who says like this: look, Silber gave me this cow. over the time that we've spent together, I've really grown close to this cow, right? I'm not ready. I go through life, I have attachment issues. I'm usually a little bit of a detached person. We've really connected. Here's what I'm going to do. I want to keep the cow, but I don't want to steal. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to tell Silber it was stolen, and I'll just pay him. And Shalom Yisrael. So therefore, both say we are concerned that even when a shomer says I'm willing to pay, maybe he has the object. Maybe he has. So what do we do? Even when you say you want to pay, or he says, okay, you can pay, but Allah Chalamai say you have to swear that you don't have it, that it's not in your rishus. Incredible. So meisvei hamalves chavir ala mashkon v'aved mashkon. So we'll say, watch this. If I go ahead and I lend Ruvain money on a collateral, and what happens? And now the collateral is lost. Va'amar lo sela hilvisicha, and I say to Ruvain, I lent you a sela, right? So hilvisicha love shekel hayashava, but the collateral itself was only worth a shekel. V'alo omer lo elaki silvisani alav sela hayashava, and the borrower says not true. Rabbi was saying, we're going to stop over here for today. We're going to start. We'll say at this brisa. We'll say, by the way, tremendous, right? I'm not feeling it from the Olam over here, but all right, it's fine. I'll just rejoice in my own personal accomplishment. We have rejoined the rest of the Daf Yomi world. Baruch Hashem is to be back on track. Another incredible day tomorrow. We'll say, Shkoyach. All right, Chevron Zoom, have a great day, everyone. Sure, Thursday night, yeah. Meretz Hashem, we're on. Yeah. No, I have a chasana, but it's next week. Yeah, no, it's good. We're on. Even next week I have a chasana, but I really want to try to give shield.
Is it a Tarasalka? Then the world will definitely be on.
Either Beth or Tarasalka. It's
time because they have to.
Right, they have to. Beth is close. Beth is close. So even if all right, but yeah, this week we're on.